All right. So I had to do some research last night and this morning working on something and sort of developing a prospecting methodology around reaching out to people in cold emails, but like like not like I normally do, which is I get a bunch of people and I send them all basically the same email. This is one of those the other type of cold email where you do your research and craft something that's unique to just that one person and then put it together. And as part of that, I've ended up looking at a lot of companies, dozens so far, that bring on paid guests to their webinars. Now, I don't know if you know this. I mean, a lot of people don't know that you can have your webinars like operationally outsourced, like one of my
Yep,
companies does. And
I know
how
that.
many people know that you can have webinars ghostwritten, which I've been doing for many, many years on behalf of other people, but that you can also pay guests to show up. Usually they're from, you have two kinds of high profile guests in a webinar or any sort of live event if you're a company. You have a high ranking person from a partner company or an adjacent company that's really not a competitor who, maybe they're chief technology officer or their CEO or the head of product or the global VP of whatever. And this is basically this is a person like you, but they're talking about a topic that might be interesting to your audience, but you don't have to pay them. And then you can pay analysts and researchers like people from Gartner, people from Forrester,
Forrester, yeah.
companies like that. And you already have a subscription with that company and they're sort of a vendor to you. It's a weird relationship, a Gartner or a Forrester, for example, in that you pay them so that you can provide them with information so that you might end up in one of their reports where they rank you based on other people.
So you're getting
And then if
third-party
you want,
validation.
sorry?
You're getting third-party validation in a way,
You
kind of
basically
sideways.
you're
Go ahead.
participating in and then
Yeah.
paying for third-party validation. And they make no guarantees, by the way, that they're going to rank you highly or anything. Otherwise, the reports wouldn't be worth anything, right? To anyone else. You just, okay, well, they bought their placement here. It's really not much different than Yellow Pages. That's not how these companies work. So they do their analysis and their homework. But then if you want them to come onto your webinar and whatever space you're in, right? You're a SaaS company, you work in medical devices, you work in space technology, whatever. If they have an analyst and sort of, they have someone who specializes in that part of that industry, of that vertical, then you can pay to have those people come on as guests. And this is over and above typically what you pay for your subscription, unless you did some negotiating and you got it blended in. And so you would certainly pay thousands of dollars to have this person come on and give maybe a 20-minute presentation. You might pay tens of thousands of dollars. And this presentation is not specific to your company. This presentation is them talking to your audience about the industry that you're in. So there isn't
you benefit too from the backlinks to that, I would imagine. I mean,
well, if it's your webinar and you're paying them, then there's no really backlinks to it. If they wouldn't normally put your webinar on their website.
Mm-hmm.
So really, it's I think it's a fascinating business model. If you're Gartner or Forrester or one of those research firms, but essentially, as a client, you're paying to have this person come on to give a short presentation about your industry to your audience or the audience you were able to put together for the webinar. Of course, you get to keep the webinar and, provide the replay as a video and continue to have people sign up for it long after it's not live anymore. And looking at it, looking at those webinars, I see the same issues and live events, the same issues that every webinar kind of has. And webinars and all live events, really everything. We've talked before about how it's a worthwhile creative exercise to just stop and think about all the assumptions that you made before you try to do something. So for instance, if you've never done a webinar or you're kind of new to it, or you're new to writing webinar registration and landing pages, or you're new to writing the email sequences around them, or you're new to thinking about them as, X instead of Y. What you did is you went online, you Googled like how to do a webinar, and then somebody who themselves made a bunch of assumptions about why people show up to webinars and what the whole thing is for and blah, blah. That person made assumptions, almost certainly by looking at someone else who made assumptions. Who's someone else who just needed to get going And so they made some assumptions and go. And don't get me wrong, right? Everyone has to make assumptions about everything all the time. We'd never get anything done otherwise. Everything can't be picked apart and analyzed all the time. But at some point, multiple generations down, you do need to think, so like, why do we do this? So let me show you. So I'm going to just do a topic that we've covered many times, and then I want to go into an actual example that I was looking at today with someone who's got a webinar coming up in a few days. Very impressive company and a big marketing budget, looks like, and has done. It's not that they've done anything wrong per se. It's that they've just done what everyone else did without thinking about why they're doing it and could it be better. So the topic here is, and we've done this many times, you need to go 90% of the way when you're communicating. And I don't think anyone's going to be able to read this text. I was trying to fix it and then ran out of time. But the text basically says, here's my research. So you imagine that you're on the left here at the far end of the purple and someone else is on the far end of the gray. And that's who you're trying to communicate with. And you're trying to take something and put it in their head. I mean, what is communication other than trying to put something into someone else's brain? That's all it is. And so you might go a quarter of the way and say, look, I've done all my research. So here's the links to the white papers and the PDFs and the TED Talks and the Amazon books and everything that I used to learn what I've learned here. Here's all the links here. So you don't have to start at zero, but you can go buy and read and watch everything yourself and then do it. And then if you go halfway, which is where most of us go all the time, it's sort of like, here's my summary and my thinking on this. So you're not making them go and read and watch and do everything. You're providing something for them. And, sort of like a bubbled up Cliff Notes version. Do they have Cliff Notes in America?
Oh, yeah. They still exist.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. There you go. Oh, it was Cole's Notes in Canada, but it's Cliff Notes here.
Cliff Notes, baby.
Right. But then at the very end with the gold star is where you want to be. It's like, this is what you can believe and what you should do. You can't really go beyond 90%. You can go to like 95, 96, 97%. But at that point, you're not even conveying information. You're just conveying an emotion. And you get there by years and years and years of repeated messaging, usually with a lot of money. So this is where just do it belongs. This is where the McDonald's jingle, dun 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 dun, right? You know how long it took to put that in your head and to put it in the heads of hundreds of millions of people? Right? Or what's the T-Mobile one? How's the T-Mobile one go?
It's not really. It's like a little sound. It's like,
right? It's just an emotion. That's all you're conveying at that point, right? It's the pink ribbon for breast
fuchsia
research.
It's fuchsia.
Yes.
Right? It's fuchsia, sure, whatever. But it's basically, it's many years and a lot of money and a lot of work to just like instantly communicate something. It's almost never worthwhile economically, financially, time-wise, resource-wise to go to 99%. But you can go to 90% because pros go to 90%. They take on the responsibility of making sure that everything that person might still need to know or need to feel or need to understand and internalize, it's my job to convey that. So let me see if I can share.
There are multiple iterations too. Like, think Coca-Cola's had tons of different slogans over the years.
Yeah.
So, but that's just a tremendous amount of brand equity, which I don't know that Forrester and some of these others have that brand equity. I guess they do within their B2B space.
Right. I tried to scroll up here to hide the company's logo, but it's not possible.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a B2B company, right? They sell a whole bunch of stuff. Very impressive, like I said, set of solutions. And this is their, you see how they got the little Forrester thing here. So they're going to have a webinar later this week, 2 days from now. And what they're doing is the problem with B2B is, and we talked about this yesterday, how like the hero's journey is kind of BS for B2B. It doesn't mean some of the lessons don't work. It just means that audiences have built-in skepticism in a B2B world. And they think it's their duty to be skeptical of what a vendor or any other seller is trying to say, whether it's marketing or sales. So I've looked at this, and the first thing, sort of assumption they've made is that the headline needs to convey information. And it does not. The headline's job is not to convey information, or in the case of, see where it says reimagine here? Like reimagine is what we'd call a friction word, like learn. or
Yeah,
even
it's just it
explore.
doesn't resonate. Yeah,
It conveys that you should do some work.
I don't want to work.
That's
Make me think.
that's not going 90% of the way.
Mm.
I don't know you yet, and I don't do work without being very sure that it's worth doing work. Because like everyone else on planet Earth, my day is very, very full with 100,000 messages being, pumped into my life from sources I have no control over.
Well,
So,
there's other people's urgencies. Yeah. Okay.
and reimagine is kind of
Yeah.
like, that's a big task, right? Stop and like reimagine. And
Yes.
ironically, reimagine conveys there are assumptions and you should be challenging them, but they haven't challenged their assumptions on how to put together this page. This looks like every other page that every other big company does. So I mean, there are a lot of things that could be done here, but there's another problem with it in that they went ahead and repeated the same mistake by using the exact same headline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like this is prime real estate. It's bad enough that you've got this not particularly compelling. It sounds grand, but it doesn't grab you,
Right.
right? But then they repeated the mistake by giving up this real estate. Instead of this should be a headline. There are two problems with this. First, it should be a headline or a subheadline that further emphasizes the benefit of signing up for the webinar, right? And secondly, why would you ever put a headline in extra light text? Look how thin this is. This should jump out, but extra light text is very, very easy to just scroll past and ignore.
Mhm.
So
Because it looks pretty.
It looks pretty, right? A copywriter would never, ever let you do this. What's happened is there's a style guideline at this company for, headlines should be and blah, blah. And the point is
H2, H3.
that's put together by UI, UX folks
Mhm.
who want it to look pretty, but they've never been on the hook to sell anything or to get someone to take an action. And anybody who's been on the hook to do that and measured against that and compensated based on that would never let them get away with an easy to scroll past, easy to not even consciously see headline. And so there are two reasons you don't really see this headline most of the time. If you've already just read it, or at least enough of it to know that this is a repeat. And second, it's not in any kind of bold or so it doesn't convey anything new. And it's even de-emphasized by being made skinnier. I'm not going to go into this.
Lighter.
This is, I would not have done this, but this is not what I would have written. But it doesn't mean it's bad. It just means, again, the same thing. They've made a bunch of assumptions. So then you register for this, okay? And you click over, and this is great, by the way. There should be a confirmation page.
Yep.
The problem with this is first of all, this is on Demio.com. So this is on the webinar company's server. This one, they've embedded the form into there, which is great. I even called out in a write-up I sent them. This is great. You should definitely have your own form, have control over it, and so on. But then they went and they just, used the default one. There's no reason to. I use Demio. I have clients who use Demio, and I have to use Demio on their behalf. You can send, when someone clicks register, you can send them to any page in the internet.
Yeah.
Also, why did we switch from blue to purple?
Because we didn't know what color we really had. We forgot
no
when we went to the next
there.
page.
They did a good job. I mean, granted, they have to use the same bit ponderous, clunky headline. But they did a good job at least letting you know that this is what you've signed up for. But see this button here, this shape, I'm not a graphics guy, but even I know that this color button and this color button are the same. And so they kept some of the colors, but then decided to change this color instead. There's no reason for that. Also, this page is just wasted real estate. It does convey some information. It's great. But what's happened is most of the people, generally speaking, about half of the people, at least, that register for a webinar like this with Forrester, and they've already promoted this on LinkedIn. That's how I found them in the first place, right? So they've already gone out of their way to get people into the audience that are not current customers or family and friends, we could call them. And yet they've done nothing with this real estate. And part of it, the reason is they don't have their own custom page. Demio is very restrictive on what it lets you do with these kind of pages. And so they should have just used another page on their own website like they did with this one. But there's no sort of zero cost upsell here. What happened is some stranger registered. The only way to get to this page is to register for the webinar. And some stranger has decided that you and your company can be allowed to move a tiny bit closer to them and their company. And I mean, that's all basically B2B marketing and sales is incrementally moving the two companies closer together until there's a sales meeting and then a series of sales meetings. And then it goes into proposals and legal and procurement and all that stuff. So why not include, let me see if I can give you an example here. Okay, so this is one that I'm doing in a few weeks. And basically the whole point of this is avoid my mistakes, because I've done so many of these. You just avoid my mistakes, jump straight to the positive future, skip the negative present, man, because there's a lot of negative in the present, but you can skip to a positive future. And if you register for this, then you end up on this thank you page. But here's the difference between, first of all, it's all hosted on my site, right? I use DropFunnels for this, but you can use anything, GrooveFunnels, anything, literally. You don't even, you can use GoDaddy. It wouldn't matter, right? Yeah. But then why give up the real estate when you can take the opportunity to start showing other stuff, right? Now, in my case, these are, this is not a $0 upsell. This is actually like a small price tag upsell, but everything else is free. And in this company's case, they could have had links to a video from a previous webinar that also, like the replay video, that had a similar topic. They could have had links to blog posts, white papers, case studies, other stuff that this audience might be interested in. Something to keep the, granted, it's a very low level, low information kind of conversation right now. It's a stranger who's agreed to take a chance on letting your company and their company move a little closer together. But why not like follow up on it? Why not give them something else to do? They're obviously interested in the topic. Sure. Give them more of your stuff that's on the topic.
Yeah, give them something to read between times, or I got to give them some credit here because they did put an add to my calendar button, which most people muck up all the time. Yeah. And so you got to give them
hard to see it though. I would say graphically. I love the idea of having, a picture or the video or something additional. And it's just like if you're doing thank you pages for offers that you make in the B2C space, you give them the opportunity for another upsell, but you make it as clear as possible, which I like, I like that you're in, it's very large font and bold. I mean, it tells you something happened when you press that button.
Now, you're here. What they've done is, again, with Demio, and I use Demio, and by the way, there is no, and I've said this before, there is no perfect webinar service. They all have their strengths and weaknesses. The only reason I ever recommend Demio is certainly not for its email sequences and not for its registration pages or its confirmation pages. They're very restrictive and very ugly. The only reason to use Demio is that their video streaming at 1080p is rock solid. Never had a single problem in any of God knows how many webinars across X number of clients. Good. Never had a problem with like bad video, dropped frames. Like it's rock solid. And ultimately that's the core of a webinar service, right? It's the video that's going out to somebody. And they're very big on having, people on camera as opposed to, or at least I am very big on having people on camera instead of just slides. Anybody can do slides. Any webinar service can do slides and do a good job. So I basically have to build around Demio's video streaming capability with my own front end, email sequences, funnel and back end and confirmation pages and stuff on it. And I just use their core and it works really well. And so that's why you use Demio. But then I don't have it up because it would be a weird thing to show. But you get a confirmation from Demio. And Demio lets you, they're also very restrictive on their email sequences. So like the top part is pre-populated, the bottom part is pre-populated, join on this link, here's your custom link, add to your calendar, whatever. But there's a section in the middle where if you want to, you can add in your own message, something a little friendlier, provide a link to your website. Provide a link to a blog post. But this company did none of that. All I got was the completely cold boilerplate Demio confirmation email. Again, wasted opportunity. Got to go 90% of the way. They didn't go 90% of the way. Now, the webinar hasn't happened yet. It's not going to happen until Thursday. So I haven't had a chance to see if they're using, I don't think they will, but I don't see if they're using a third step. But after the sign up and then the confirmation right after you sign up and the soft upsells, even if it's $0. After the webinar is over, you send out an email and this is what people get. So this guy's, use whatever picture you want. I just looked at this and said, this is a weird picture. Like, where is he? Is he in a pub or a coffee shop or something? What's going on here? But clearly, I guess the coffee shop, he's got a cup of coffee there.
I think it's an opium den.
But he's had his laptop. He's leaning back. He seems satisfied. He had fun, right? But then here's the other stuff again. And these are more concrete upsells, like how to contact Dean and, how to get the PDF. These will all be links, right? The PDF doesn't exist yet. So, and watch the replay. It's not yet a link, but it will be, right? Here's the video. Here's how to get Dean's slides. And basically I always have a booklet because my stuff is 90% of the time it's scripted. These are not, but it's 90% of the time it's scripted. I've written everything out and using a teleprompter so that I can make sure the audience gets the maximum amount of information with the least time of waffling around from me repeating phrases and blah, 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 blah. And, getting my thoughts together. So I like it all put together. And since I have that, it's all in a PDF with the slides. And sometimes I sell the PDF. Most times I just give it away. But it'll be here anyway. There's a way to contact Dean and just an understanding that, you sign up for something, so you're going to get some emails once in a while. But you can unsubscribe. I don't know if they're going to have a third stage, but I doubt it. Based on what I've seen for the second stage, I don't think they're going to do a third stage. Demio doesn't have a third stage capability, so they would have to do it on their own website again. But again, the job is to go 90% of the way, to do everything, all of the thinking, all of the imagining of the audience's context. Is it noisy where they are? Are they doing this on their phone? Is this one of 11 things they're going to try to do this hour? And, just think about it and make it as easy for them as possible to take the very next step to get to you. So hasn't been done here. And this is a really big company with lots of, there's definitely a impressive marketing budget. If you're having Forrester on your webinars, you've got an impressive marketing budget for webinars. But again, we all make these assumptions and they're based on what we, copied from other people who made an assumption, who copied from someone else who made an assumption. And then you start thinking about, well, why is it like this? Why do we only have one? Most webinars, by the way, 90+% only have a single registration page. There's almost nothing going on for a confirmation afterwards anyway. Maybe a pop-up, that's it. And then an email. So they're not thinking about it in terms of, well, why is there only one page? Why is there only 2 pages? What happens when people are finished? Do they just get an email with the replay and that's it? Because that's all Demio is going to give you. So we all make all these assumptions. We all have to. But at some point, the only way you're going to move ahead, the only way that you're going to, let's see here. I can stop sharing that. The only way that you're going to get to 90% on the gold star is to challenge all the assumptions and see which ones make sense. I mean, it's just a web page for a confirmation. It's just a web page for the after event. Here's the extra stuff and stuff you can get. I hope you enjoyed the webinar kind of stuff. It's just a web page. It doesn't take that long to put them together. And yet we make the assumption, well, the ones that I've watched didn't do that, so I guess we're not going to do that either. I guess it doesn't matter what the headline is. I guess it doesn't matter that it's an ultralight font that is almost invisible to a lot of people, especially on a phone, especially if they're in a hurry. And so, again, just think about the assumptions once in a while. I guarantee you, for anything that's been around more than, 5 minutes, one of those assumptions is now broken, and you can rethink it and get ahead compared to everyone else. Now, I will say that company, they did a good job. They did better than 3/4, say, of everyone in any big company that puts together a webinar. It seems like the bigger the company, the less they put into the registration page, compelling copy and all that kind of stuff. The smaller they are, I guess they have more writing on it, so they put more effort into it. They don't necessarily do a better job, but they do put more effort into it. But the bigger the company, the more sterile it seems to be. And I'm not saying don't be professional sounding, and you can even be sterile, but don't waste the real estate. It's right there. You might as well use it. You've paid for it. So people make assumptions. They shouldn't be making assumptions. Other people broke your webinar before you even decided what your topic was going to be because they made a bunch of false assumptions and you're just copying them. That's how other people break our webinars.
I can say one false assumption probably is that everybody's going to be watching on a desktop.
Yes.
Especially in B2B. So
yeah. Another false assumption is that people are there because they're interested in your content. Some are, but there are lots of reasons to show up to a webinar, and that's only one of them. So, you just can't assume that you can not bother to try to make your content more interesting because the people who are there just really want to know it, and they'll put up with unrehearsed, unprepared, sloppy presentation styles and lots of jargon because they're already in your little domain and they're super interested in what you're going to say. Some of them are. Not all of them. Not even the majority. There are all kinds of reasons to join a webinar. That's only one.
Some of them are more interested in eating their lunch while they're watching.
Yeah, some of them use it as background music
sometimes,
or background radio. Some of them use it because it's workish without being real work. So they get to like pretend like they're at work, but they're really just looking at Facebook or checking their Gmail or something. Some of them do it because they actually use live events like that as a way to block out the other people in their company on their calendar, so then they can actually not even goof off, but actually get real work done.
So you may be a placeholder.
You might be a placeholder. That doesn't mean you shouldn't try to pull them back to the screen.
Right.
If someone was writing your presentation for your webinar, one of the jobs they know they have to do up front is to get back audience attention that's already wandered away. And that would include the people who booked it just so that they could have uninterrupted time on their calendar to do the paperwork and admin stuff that they I don't know how other people are, but in my experience, most people do not enjoy having strangers talking about something that, content they haven't yet experienced. So it's not a repeat, as a way to do creative thinking. It's too disruptive. But to do administration, to clear your inbox, take care of all the little things you needed to do, to finalize your expense report, having someone like talking on a webinar is fine. Just, and so they're actually using it as a way to like block other people from getting time on their calendar so they can focus on this stuff, which must be done. But there's never a time when you want to make it. It's always important, but it's not urgent. So they use it as a way to, clean up their inbox, basically.
It's an opportunity to delete, and it's a real treat.
Yeah. I know one person, a friend of mine, he deliberately likes to book or register for webinars that are going to happen on Wednesdays, so that he gets an hour on Wednesdays to do his admin work. And then what he does is he watches the replay on Fridays when it's slower.
That works.
I mean, it's part of his job now, is to get that time blocked out in a way so that other people can't look at it and say, okay, I'm not going to do that. So other people broke our webinars long before we started making them. And it's because they made assumptions and then we just adopted their assumptions instead of taking a little time to think through, is this still true? Was this ever true? Is this going to be true tomorrow? It doesn't take that long to look at the assumptions and realize a lot of these are broken. They're just convention, but they don't mean anything. It's a fence or a guardrail that doesn't need to be there. I could be skipping across that meadow, but instead someone else put a fence there, and I never thought to think, why is that fence there? And because it made sense for someone else maybe, but not for you.
That barbed wire hurts.
And barbed wire hurts.
It does.
So yeah, as I looked through this company and other companies' upcoming or just past webinars that they did with Forrester, it occurred to me that, by the way, I have another webinar coming out. I have one on the 3rd, one on the 10th. So the one on the 10th was the one I just showed about learn from my mistakes. The one on the 3rd is actually how to get maximum benefit of a webinar where you have an expensive speaker or just an important guest, because that guest is not there to talk about you, and they don't know the ins and outs of your business. And they're not salespeople on your behalf. They're there as sort of an attraction. But what we do is we turn over everything to them, all the messaging, and we've just paid a lot of money or given access to our audience to someone who's not actually, pushing forward what we're trying to do and get those people to move closer to us. If I have a speaker on who's talking about my industry, that doesn't mean that anyone in that audience is going to say, well, I think I would like this company to move closer to my company. That's because, and they're not there to do that for you. If anything, they're there to either draw in the audience or sort of provide novelty to the audience. But, it's not just your sales pitch over and over. But that doesn't mean that you need to seed that ground and yield that opportunity to continue to move forward with the message. You should let my company move closer to your company. It'll be good for you.
Doctor's orders.
What's that?
Doctor's orders.
Doctor's orders, yeah. All right, let's get this off the screen. So
faces.
Tomorrow is Wednesday.
It is. That's a check.
Means it's our Google search break down someone's website day.
Awesome.
I thought I was just going to block off time and then I was going to watch the replay on Friday.
You could totally do that.
Okay.
Just show up.
The fact that you're participating could make it a little tricky, but I think you might figure it out.
Okay.
So tomorrow we do our Google search for anything. We immediately skip to page 10, the page no one's looking at.
Page 10.
And find, usually somewhere in the middle of that page, a company's website. And we're going to just look at it and see how they could have improved it. Okay. And the idea is the same mistakes get made over and over, and the same improvements would help many other people, not just the particular individual who's probably never going to see this video or know that we looked at their website anyway. And then, of course, Thursday is Tools Day. And I think this time I'm going to show, now that I figured out how to connect my phone to my Mac in a way that lets me share the screen on the phone, I'm going to show the little shortcut that I built on my iPhone that ensures that I never, ever miss recording an idea or thought or piece of information that I might want somewhere down the road, by making that as simple as possible and as fast as possible with no friction.
Do you have
you guys bring whatever tools you want. So I'm just going to bring the one. And then I had a great time last time looking at tools that you guys suggested. If there's more, I would love to see them.
There's more. Plenty more.
I'm going to brand yours. I'm branding yours as the Way Cool tool.
There you go. Patent pending.
TM.
Of course.
TM.
That's right. TM.
Copyright Dean Way.
TMI. Yeah, exactly. So I was going with that next.
All right. We went a bit over today.
It's all right.
So
TLD.
Wave to the people.
Hello.
And we'll see